Hey everyone, this is Jesse Hines. I'm one of the co-founders at ClimateBase, which is the organization that is behind SF Climate Week. And we are really excited to announce the launch of our event submission guide for SF Climate Week 2025. This video is going to give you an overview of how to basically submit the 2025 event submission guide, some criteria over events that we allow to be on the calendar this year at ClimateBase, and then some other information about SF Climate Week this year and other ways that we can help make your event really succeed this year at SF Climate Week. So to get started, I'm going to go over kind of a quick intro and overview of what this guide that we'll be walking through today covers. Essentially, the first thing we'll dive into is criteria for adding your event to the SF Climate Week calendar, how to actually add your event to the calendar, some information about the required registration questions, information about online events this year, which is new, and I'm excited to touch on that later. How to get your event featured or boosted, which is another new thing that I'm excited to touch on later. How to manage your waitlist, and finally, communicating with attendees and some guidelines around that. With that being said, we are going to first dive into criteria for adding your events to the SF Climate Week calendar. All right, so moving on to the criteria section, just going to go a few pieces of the criteria in order to get your event listed on the SF Climate Week calendar. First of all, your event must land within the dates of April 19th to April 27th. Most events, we do require that it is an in-person event this year in the San Francisco Bay Area. However, we are allowing a select few number of online events. We think it's really important to allow event organizers to do online events. However, we're going to be selectively rolling this feature out. To learn more about how to host an online event, we have some more information that is included in one of the forms that's part of this process, and we'll get to there later in this video series. More important criteria for having an event on the SF Climate Week calendar is that you must use our dedicated events platform, which is Luma, as the event platform that is going to host your event registration page. You also need to add SF Climate Week in Luma as a co-host with manager access. You must include about 3 or 4 required registrant questions. We'll dive into those below for your attendees to answer when they're registering your event. And finally, you must include the boilerplate SF Climate Week registrant information sharing disclaimer that is going to go on your event. Once you've completed all of the steps involved, there will be an additional form you'll have to fill out to give us some more information about your event, as well as indicate if you're interested in some of the add-ons we're offering this year at SF Climate Week for event organizers. Moving on to the actual process of adding your event to the calendar. The first step here is that you're going to go to Luma/SF Climate Week 2025. Before we click on this link, you want to look at the second step here, which is that once you land on this page, you're going to be clicking on the button that says Submit Event, which you can find on the right-hand side of the page. So let's do that. Great. We are on the page. As you can see, we have a couple test events. Don't get too distracted by those. Those will be gone when we launch the calendar. But I'm going to click on Add Event. Now we have 2 options here. One, you can add an existing Luma event. You'll want to make sure you read all of the requirements to make sure that we have in this document to make sure that your event will be approved. If you already have the event already on Luma at this point, you want to just edit it to make sure that it's all up to speed and up to what our requirements are. But you also can just add an event from scratch. So for this demo today, I'll be going through the process of adding an event from scratch. So, and lastly, if you add an external event, that won't be approved. So you'll have to make sure that you add an event that is directly, that is hosted on Luma. So here we go. Great, so I'm just gonna create a test event. I gotta make sure that the event is in between the 19th and the 27th of April. So I'm gonna choose this. For this example, I'm going to be assuming that it is an in-person event. Require approval. I can add a description, some random stuff there, and logo for the event. That really helps. To be clear, we really want you to give a really detailed description of your event. That's obviously the best. Yeah, fill out everything. You can either choose if you want tickets to be free. You can charge for events for tickets for your event if you want. You can set the capacity, all that good stuff. So I'm going to click create event. Okay, amazing. I've now created the event. Let's go back to the guide. We've already covered adding the event process. Okay, great. So I've added the event. Now we're going to move to step 4, which is adding SF Climate Week as a co-host to the event. So I'm now going to scroll down here, and you're going to click on this. You're going to type in SF Climate Week at climatebase.org. I'm not going to be able to add this because I'm actually signed into the SF Climate Week account right now. But if I wasn't signed into the SF Climate Week account right now, then I would simply say invite as a co-host. And there's another step right after that actually says, do you want this co-host to have manager abilities, or do you want this co-host to be a non-manager? And as the guide says right here, you want to make sure that you click manager abilities. That's part of the requirements. Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to add some of the required questions. In order for your event to be included, you are required to include these following questions to your event or onto your event registration form. So let's quickly just show you what it's like just adding one of these events. We don't have to add all of them, but we would go to the registration tab here. We would scroll down and we would say, okay, we're going to add some custom questions. So to be clear, it's already asking for name, it's already asking for email, and it's already asking for phone number. That's built in by default. So we'll add the first question, which is, what is your job title? What is your job title? Now, I'm being really clear that the best way to do this is to actually copy and paste this exact title in here. We want to make sure you put the character by character, the exact question. And I am then going to say, and it can be multi-line, it can be short, up to you. I'm going to make that required because it says this needs to be a required free response question. And I'm going to then say add question. Great. So you'll do this for all of the questions in step number 6. We won't do that in this demo because I don't want you guys to just watch me add all these questions, but you'll add all of them to be really clear. Finally, we will make sure we add this boilerplate disclaimer to your event as well. So I am going to go back, and this is going to go in the edit event section. You'll go to the description, and imagine I have the actual description of this event, maybe multiple paragraphs, and then at the very end, I would just add this right here. Okay, great. So that is the full step of how you submit your Luma event. You've now filled everything out that's required at this point. You've added us as a co-host. You've added your event to the calendar. It's not approved yet. There's another step that's involved that we'll dive into in a moment. And you've also added the required questions, and you've added the event disclaimer notice on the event description. So the next step will be to fill out the database and marketing form. I'm going to pause for a moment and not dive into that because in the database and marketing form, you'll have some options to choose for additional add-ons for your event this year at SF Climate Week. So I want to cover those really quickly. The first thing that's new that you can select that you want to try out this year at SF Climate Week as an event organizer is the ability to host an online event. Now, as I explained, we are doing some limited availability of online events this year at SF Climate Week because this is going to be a new thing for us. We want to make sure that we don't overrun the calendar with too many online events because at the end of the day, San Francisco Climate Week is an in-person event series. So we're going to be prioritizing events that are about community, about innovation, about climate impact. So when you fill out the event, the event or the database and marketing form, you'll have the ability to select if you are interested in if you want to make your event an online event. And if you select that option, you'll be met with a disclaimer that says, if your event is approved to be an online event, there will be a cost of about $300 to post an online event. And then if your event is selected and it is approved to be online on the calendar, we will follow up with an invoice for $300 so we can get your event approved. Okay, that's the first thing. Super exciting. Excited to expand the audience, that make it SF Climate Week even more of a global audience, which is we're really excited about. Okay, moving on through. The other thing that's new this year at SF Climate Week are the SF Climate Week premium event add-ons. So we're offering two types of event add-ons. One is something called a boosted event. So if you select this option in the database and marketing form, this will basically we'll take your event and we'll feature it in one of our upcoming newsletters. This goes out to 30,000 subscribers that are part of our SF Climate Week audience, newsletter audience, that is. And it just gives you some additional visibility so you can really make sure your event is a big splash. We had over 350 events last year, and we expect even more this year. And many events last year kind of got lost in the noise because there were so many events on the calendar. So if you want to really make an impact, you really want to make a splash this year, this is a pretty good option. The next add-on that you could choose if you're interested in it is featured events. So featured events are very similar to a newsletter or to a boosted event add-on, except that you get a sort of top tier placement in the newsletter when you get your event featured there. You also get your event added onto some of these featured event carousels that we'll have on the website for even extra visibility on the website. And this is going to be the maximum exposure we're able to offer for event organizers who are looking to make a big splash with their event this year. Boosted events start at $200 per boosted event if you're interested in that add-on, and we do some sliding scale pricing depending on if your organization is a nonprofit, is community focused, anything like that. Featured events are more expensive, and if you select the option in the database and marketing form, which we'll dive into momentarily, we'll basically follow up with you afterwards and first of all approve. We want to approve to make sure that your event hits the criteria to be a boosted event or a featured event. So if you are approved, then we will follow up with an invoice to process your payment to make your event a boosted event and featured event. Now that we gave you some additional context about some of the options included in the database and marketing form, now it's time to actually dive in and complete it. One other note I want to make about the database and marketing form before we dive in is that it is, by filling this out, it will allow your event to get approved much faster. We are going in the next couple days to be dealing with so many events being added to the calendar. And when we collect in additional information about your event through this form, it really expedites the process for approving your event. So that's just one additional bonus perk that goes into filling out this event database and marketing form as soon as possible after submitting your event through Luma. Okay, so some quick instructions before we dive in. It looks like it's telling me that we'll be submitting our event's Luma URL as the first step. So that's interesting to know. Let's dive in to see what it's talking about. And I'm already logged in, so let me quickly log out and start from scratch. Okay, so I am now here. I am going to, so the first step here, it says enter the URL for your event. And so I'm going to find the URL for my event. Okay, I just copied it here. I can click the copy button, go back, and I'm going to type this in. Quick note, if you do get an error message, this may happen when you're submitting many events all at the same time or like back to back. Sometimes it's just too many event submissions on the same browser and it can trip up your computer. And because I've been testing this a lot, that's probably going to happen in this video. So I just want to note if that does happen, simply reload the page and you'll be good to go. So I've typed in my Luma URL, the exact same one from my event. And that's really important because we want to be able to match your Luma event to your form submission event. And this is the unique ID we match on. I'm going to click submit. Okay, great. So the first section of this form is your event organizer form. You are going to type in your email, and you are going to type in the email that's associated with your event on Luma. That piece is really, really important. It helps us maintain that all of your information for this event in our database, it all gets synced together so we know how to associate your Luma event with this form itself. You're going to fill out all this information, everything here, and when you get to and then you'll move on to the second information, which is actually more specific information about your event. So fill out all of this. Some fields are required, like is your event in person or online. However, many fields are optional. We highly recommend you give us all of your information. This will make sure that we can market your event to the best ability that we can. And especially if you have some things like, are there any notable announcements happening at your event? We can feed some of these announcements to the press that we're working with, so your event can even get additional exposure outside of our own audience. You'll want to make sure you click the event liability release. This is really important as well. And you'll fill this whole thing out. This will be the section where you can indicate whether you want your event to be a premium event or a boosted event. You can choose either of those options or say, I'm not interested in either. We also, even if you're not interested in upgrading your event to a boosted or featured event, we do give you the option to make a donation. These donations are not required. You do not have to donate to SF Climate Week. However, your donation really means a lot to us. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep, basically keep this event happening year to year. So if you are able to make a donation, we really appreciate it. Once you fill out everything here, you'll click Save. Now, something to note, you're able to, a new feature this year at SF Climate Week is that you're actually able to access this submission guide again after you've clicked Saved. So if you wanted to access the submission guide again after you click Save, you're able to do that by simply going back to the home page here for the form and resubmitting your Luma link. When you click this, as you can tell, or when you add your Luma link back in here and click Add or Edit Event Information, this button at the bottom, it'll bring you back to your to the form submission, and you can make edits that will update within our system and database about your event. So this is really important. And to be clear, if you decide in the future that you want to, after you've submitted this form for the first time, if you decide that you want to change your event to online, or if you decide that you want to upgrade your event to a boosted or featured event, you can indicate that in your form by editing the form. And then I would say also make sure you send us an email at info@sfclimatebase.org just to make sure that we're aware of that request you're putting in. So at this step in the process, you've now done the two required things. You've filled out the event, you've created a Luma event, and second of all, you have also submitted the database and marketing form. At this point, you'll get an automated email. The email will say that you've successfully submitted all the information, and we'll give you a timeline on when your event will be approved. We're trying to get most events approved within 72 hours. However, given the influx of events we're expecting this year and all the excitement going on to our third year of SF Climate Week, please provide us some flexibility if we aren't able to get back with you and approve your event within 72 hours. What is nice this year is that once your event is approved, you will get an email notification immediately. So look out for that email notification to know if and when your event is approved. And then you'll see it on the calendar at that point. Couple things that we won't dive into super deep into this in this video today, but there's a section in this guide on how to manage your waitlist. Super important. It's how you're going to make sure that attendees at your event and at SF Climate Week more broadly have an amazing experience and they're up to date on if they're going to get into an event, and making sure you give them enough time to plan ahead in case they are accepted into the event off of a wait list. And then we give you some instructions on the best way to communicate with registrants, which you can do all completely within the Luma platform. It's one of the reasons we chose Luma. They have a lot of amazing features, including waitlists, ticketed events, free events, how to easily do mass communications with your registrants, all sorts of stuff. So I really appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching this video. I know it was a little bit long, but we really covered all of the main aspects and main pillars of how to host an event and get it approved on the SF Climate Week calendar this year. Definitely reach out to us at SF Climate Week at climatebase.org if you run into any issues. We also highly suggest that if you're having any issues with the Luma platform itself, that you reach out to support@luma.ma. They got a great team of support that can help with any sort of issues with your event on their platform. Thanks everyone so much. I know it looks a little funny. I'm in my home office today, so in case you see like the very Brooklyn-esque apartment in the background, that's yeah. So sorry for them. Maybe it's slightly informal, but we got through all of the main points today. Really excited about SF Climate Week, really excited about all the events that are in store, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.